pretend you know something about saving someone's life. These requirements are very timely. Takes a lot of education, a lot of continuing education to be able to get those certifications and maintain them. That has resulted in a lot of people having undue pressures put onto their lives. Because remember, this isn't their careers, these were their part-time jobs or volunteer positions. And because of that, that stress, that strain of those commitments is part of the process which led to the shortage of firefighters. So as we look at that, again, I say, what you're experiencing is no different than many other fire departments throughout this country. Many fire departments have gone under. They don't exist today. They literally have given it up. They couldn't get the people. So you're to be commended for at least trying to do something through this process and work through it. It's my understanding in 2016 through the Mid-America report, we've read that report, and I see in there that there was some future considerations in that report too. So should you have problems with staffing in the future, that you were to reach out, and it specifically addressed the city of Beloit, Carlin Roscoe, and private entities. And so the city did do those things. You did your due diligence. You followed up on that report that was adopted in 2016 from the Mid-America report. You did reach out to those communities and tried to get, is there any assistance we can get? Unfortunately, that did not prove to be beneficial, except for in the case of the town of Beloit. They were the only ones that would be willing to be able to help out with the staffing, and this is something that you already know. So as we move forward here, and we look at the phase 1 process of reviewing the IGA, we looked at the IGA, we read it very in depth, and we asked a lot of questions for Chief Peace to follow through on it as well, to ensure that all of the components of the IGA were being completed. Not just on the receiving side, but also on the giving side, because that's what's good. An IGA is an intergovernmental agreement where two sides participate. We want to make sure that both sides were equally participating on what they were initially obligated to do. We did find in the IGA that the staffing component was gray. It was gray as in 2 or 3 people per day. But because they do have 2 people per day, they are in compliance with the IGA. I know it's the intent for the Chief Peace to be able to have 3 people there per day. We, that is Ray and I, did an extensive interview with Chief Peace, and we found that what he has for the future in terms of providing to the city of South Beloit has a lot of merit. We detailed that in our report. Some of the things that we had talked about in there in our report is we gave you an example of what would be a good, better, best approach to a staff in a fire station. And right now, you're sitting here with the opportunity to be able to enhance on that. So that's, again, we've outlined it in the report. We think that eventually, and Chief Peace agrees with us, that a staffed ALS engine would probably be better than a staffed ALS ambulance. It has versatility. We talked about that in the report, how it could benefit the community better in terms of responses. We detailed what the pros and cons of that were in the report. That again would require the full staffing 24 hours a day then in order to do that, which again the IGA does not call for 3 people every day. We also talked about with Chief Peace implementing a 6 fire station concept. Now this is something that he expressed to us and he outlined for us a 6 fire station concept, which we detailed in the report, which would have the 3 fire stations from the city of Beloit, the 2 fire stations from the town of Beloit, and the 1 fire station from South Beloit, participating as though they're 1 fire station or 1 fire department. And what you get then in a response like that is you get the ability to be able to utilize them all. So if the South Beloit had a call going on and they weren't available, you had an automatic response coming in from the 5 other fire stations to come and fulfill those, the next calls. Or in the case of a structure fire, it's very difficult to be able to get what we would call maybe a full assignment of 2 engines, a truck, a battalion chief, an ambulance, and all of that. It's very hard to do that when you're only a single fire station company. So with the 6-station model, that has that opportunity to be able to present a much more robust response on that initial response. We think it has a lot of merit. Also, in the intergovernmental agreement, we'd encourage you, as it comes nearing the end, that you continue to evaluate both the positives and the negatives that you've experienced during this time. And then you'd be able to look at that and say, okay, like anything, you do a risk-benefit analysis. What worked, what didn't work. Maybe there were some things that didn't work, but we can work on that. So we can go back on the revision and address those issues. Also, we would encourage you that if by chance you did want to look at other staffing models at the time, we do know now that after we've met with some other fire chiefs, that Harlan Roscoe would be interested in talking with the city of South Beloit, should that be down the road. We know that some of the other private paramedic services would be interested in that, should that be a direction down the road. That wasn't true back when you initially had that happen, when you first put this together, but things change. So that was some of the key things on the IGA, so we also wanted to look at some of the other effects that happen here. We looked at the ISO rating for the city, which is a 4. And we recognize that it would be very difficult to continue to maintain that floor with just a limited staffing in the fire station. However, we believe that if a 6-station model was implemented, it would actually, that robust response would not only support that floor, it may even have the ability to be able to improve on it. Again, that would be down the road. So watching the ISO components is something that would be key for you as well as you move down the road. Some of the other considerations that we had was we wanted to make sure that we noted that the city is still responsible for having policies, procedures, and doing record keeping. And I understand that they have policies and procedures, but as we move forward, even though you've contracted out for personnel, you have a duty to be able to maintain that, right? And that typically also requires somebody in-house to watch over the records and make sure things are updated. So that is a recommendation as well too. Even though the town of Beloit has the responsibility to provide staffing, the IGA does not have anything in there where they have to provide or maintain your policies, procedures, or your records. So we think that that's important that the city continues to maintain those as you move forward. The other thing that we noted was in there, currently the city is operating, the fire department's operating on a channel that's shared with the neighboring departments in Illinois. If in fact this 6-station model was to be implemented, it would be most effective if you were all on the same fire frequency. And it's a safety issue and it's a timely issue. So if you're all operating on the same channel, you can hear when the response is, you can hear who's going, you can be able to communicate directly with somebody and know if there's a fire or if there's a condition or whatever that was warranted. So that would be a consideration for down the road. If you're looking for improving service, and that's what this is all about, is that you would then evaluate whether or not you should be on the same fire frequency. And there's a process in which to do that, right? Also, there's the PSAP, the point of answering all of the 911 calls. That's a lot stickier However, that too is amount of time and money. So, you're looking at being able to, if you answered the 911 call, from a dispatch center, and then it has to get transferred over to somewhere in Beloit, South Town of Beloit, or whatever the case may be, you've gotta get that call over where it's gonna get dispatched, that takes time. And so you'd have to evaluate whether or not it would be cost efficient for you to move your answering point from one spot to the next. That in itself probably is a study in itself, because it's really expensive. Illinois put forth through their legislation a lot of consolidation efforts for reducing the amount of PSAPs, and because of that, they offered financial incentives. I don't know what your financial incentives would be with your current dispatch center, but again, you want to look at that and make sure you're not giving up anything before you move on. So, that was a down and dirty quick. It's my understanding you've all read the report. If you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Like I said, talked to you guys earlier before, I said, we didn't get the report till Friday night, you know, and some of us didn't get it till Saturday and what have you. And so we really haven't, had time to look through it, where, you know, now after listening to you and that, we can all kind of get a better idea of what the report's all about, you know what I mean? On my part anyway, I was on the road a lot this weekend, so I read it Friday night, and I read it Sunday a little bit. But
I just have one question, and I think it's probably the crux of the whole problem for everybody nationwide. What have you seen as far as recruiting effort that actually works to get people to come in the door, get people to retain? Why are some departments more successful in retaining, and why are some failing? Are you able,
Salary, benefits, and more calls. So, you know, typically the younger firefighter that's coming into the business today is looking for money, salary. They're looking for time off. They're looking for more calls. They're looking for benefits. And in Illinois, your pensions are mobile. You can move from one department to the next. And therefore, it doesn't matter. They're just gonna go with whatever they want to do now, whatever's closest to their home. There's a whole host of reasons why a firefighter may want to go to Department A from Department B. But typically, it has to do with money, has to do with how busy they are. I mean, it could be as much as how much time do I have to spend on the ambulance. There's a whole host of things in there, and it really comes down to that individual, what's gonna best benefit them as a whole. And so there isn't a black and white answer for what it is. I just threw out 6 things that could influence why a individual person would move from A to B.
right?
But again, the pension's portable. So it doesn't matter if they go to A to B to C to D. If they're job hopping to better themselves or do whatever they are for their personal gain, their pension comes along with them.
All right, follow-up question. We're a smaller department. There's not a lot of different areas of specialty, right? I'm very limited on my fire department knowledge, okay? Chief, this is probably some questions that you would probably do a better job of asking, but, you know, I understand there's water rescue, there's, you know, high-rise rescue, all those things. Obviously, that's not a huge requirement here. But when you're finding people that are trying to find people coming out of college, are they more interested in, we mentioned the types of calls, is that probably one of the bigger issues that we might face later on down the line? If we can offer the same salary that Rockford offers, for instance, right? They're gonna have more opportunity to grow in that department versus us, the way I would see it coming in. Is that a fair assessment?
You know, let me see if I make sure I have your question.
Can I answer that for him?
All right.
At one time, our department had all of those, water rescue, chemical rescue, we had high angle, low angle, trench rescue, building collapse rescue. We had no problem in getting people to fill those positions at that time. these teams, you get these young guys, they wanna get in it. And, we were joint technical rescue teams with, like 15 departments around us. We shared those personnel. So those are definitely something that will draw the people in. But it's a matter of getting the people in to fill these spots. As we talked about earlier, about not having the third person in the station all the time, that's because we're having difficulty getting people hired. And that's with the prevailing union wages in this area.
$10,000 bonus.
We talk about the good program, the better program, and the best program. The best program is having the ambulance and the engine man staffed. That's 15 people. That's not counting management, that's 15 personnel, firefighters. Just man daily, that's without vacation schedules and anything else figured in here. That's 15 people, okay? That is a tremendous amount of money on a community this size. Now, if we can work with that 3 people, having the 9 staff, which is what we're trying to accomplish now, where we can have that engine, paramedic engine, then we're gonna be able to meet the needs of this community, and that's the direction we're trying to work. I spent 44 years on the fire department in this city. When I left here, we had 4 full-time people and 32 paid on call. But it was a problem that I had been preaching from day one I got on the department, is that we had to look at manning issues, because it was dying across the country 30 years ago. It's been a steady decline. And this isn't something we're trying to do to save the city money, to get rid of something we didn't like. It's a problem we got dropped in our lap, and we're trying to find the best solution.
So a couple of follow-ups also on your question there, sir. You talk about the different disciplines, and I talked about the strain on the individual part-time volunteer firefighters. Each one of those disciplines now require a new state certification. It requires more time, more schooling, hard to maintain. So many years ago, back in the late 60s, there was a program that was put together out of Elk Grove, Arlington Heights, and Mount Prospect. It's called the Mutual Aid Box Alarm System. That system has evolved so that it is almost every fire department in Illinois, and I know on the southern border, all of the southern border in Wisconsin is all part of the Mavis agreement. So when it comes to those specialty teams, dives, technical rescues, high-rise rescues, hazmat, you now rely on Mavis. Each department doesn't have to have their own team. It's cost ineffective. You just can't do it. You can have people, but you just can't have your own teams. It's just way too expensive. That philosophy also held true with the cities or villages, fire protection districts, all have the ability to pay. So what it comes down to is that if you have a very rich community with a large tax base, you have the ability to pay for whatever you want. But in most cases, that's not true. So each government then has to be able to provide the best that they can do with their ability to pay. And that's where the good, better, best comes into play, right? I don't doubt for a minute that if there was a bucket of money here that you all could spend and endless money here, you'd have the best program for your department. However, that's not the case. And it's not the case for most governments within this state and across this country. So that's the big key thing in there, and that's why we rely on our neighbors through what's called automatic aid today. Different than mutual aid. Automatic aid is where we have an agreement that says, hey, look, our staffing is restricted. So when we get those calls, those critical calls, can you provide us with another engine? Can you bring us a truck? Can you bring us a battalion chief? So you bring in those help from those neighbors, and it's called automatic aid, right? In Chief Pease's 6-station concept, that basically is what it is. It's an automatic aid process that brings in this robust, full assignment of everything that you would need for a reported structure fire, or whatever the call may be. So it has a lot of potential, not just for South Beloit. Remember, this is also gonna be beneficial for the city and the town of Beloit as well. Yes, sir.
I got a question that, if this, you know, let's say this doesn't work, you know, let's say Tom Blake says, we're done with you. What happens then? What happens to us as we move forward? Roscoe, like, I know I read in there, Roscoe mentioned, oh, we'd like to talk to South Beloit. They didn't wanna talk to us before. Rockton didn't wanna talk to us before.
Yes, sir.
And Town of Beloit didn't wanna talk to us before. If it wasn't for them, you know, there's a city, we gotta have something to fall back on or something to, I like the 6-station thing because it's a lot of equipment, but, we got numerous amounts of equipment. Just a question.
Yes, it's a very good question, and we do address that in the report for future considerations. Obviously, you're obligated in the IGA right now. As it's coming near its completion, you can look and say, is this working or is this not? What we have identified and confirmed is that although Harlem Roscoe could not help you out when you first initially talked to them, that was because they were going through the same staffing trouble that you were going through. And they were going from a part-time model to a fully paid career model. And because of that, they just said, man, we got so much going on. We're trying to hire our own people, not a good time to come knock on our door. The chief now says that they'd be happy to talk to you in the future, now that they've got, I think they've got up to 15 people per day is their goal over there. Now, let me just back this up a little bit too, because Chief Pease has also told us that he is now authorized budgetarily to go to 10 personnel per day, where currently it's at 7. So again, he's got a challenge, like every other fire department out there, to go hire people, but he has the authority to go hire more people so that he can fulfill having all these stations staffed again.
I just wanna say one thing, Harlem Roscoe, I think it's incredibly interesting that they're now wanting to talk. I think during that first round, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were talking with them, they wanted to take the name South Beloit off the side of the building. They wanted to take the name South Beloit off the side of trucks, off the ambulance. Everything was gonna be theirs. It's incredibly interesting to me now that we found a partner that was willing to work with us, that now they wanna try to help. Endlessly interesting, and thank you for the offer, Harlem Roscoe.
So there's, what you're experiencing though is this issue here with the staffing. As long as you own a fire department, you're gonna have this issue. The only way to walk away from this is to leave the fire department business. And that would have somebody, Rockton, Harlem Roscoe, come in and take over the whole area as their fire protection district. Now, there's pros and cons of that. For a council, you never have to have anybody complaining about the fire department anymore. You go over there. They're the ones in charge. So there's a positive to that. The negative part about that is you lose all your home feelings about your fire department, your responses, and everything else. So it's tough. You're in a hard position as a board because you have a fire department, you're trying to staff it, and it's just very difficult. And so again, the only way to make this ever go away so it never comes before this council again is get rid of the fire department.
One of our decisions.
Correct.
We wanted, and I know questions I asked, I read there. I think he answered before I asked you,
And before I say get rid of the fire department, let me just say that that's difficult because the fire protection district has a separate tax rate.
I know.
And I can assure you it's much higher,
Considerably higher.
considerably higher than what you allocate for fire protection.
They want a fire truck, they just tell them, hey, we need a fire truck, I know, right? That's what, I mean, they have some pushback.
I remember too, one last point I wanted to make, they also weren't gonna put somebody in our fire department itself.
Yeah, right, that was gonna shut down. But, yeah.
Anyways, future, you asked about future consideration. We also noted that AMR has been providing firefighter paramedics in Brockton. The chief from Brockton says he doesn't have a turnover in personnel, he's got no problems with it. So that's always a possibility. I don't know if you talked to AMR initially, so that might be a company.
You know, we did it, at the time, they weren't able to, consider us because they were having trouble
Yes.
fulfilling their contracts
Yeah,
already because of manpower. So it's, even in the private, it's an issue.
And we're doing a report right now for I can't name the name of the town, but who literally is worried about if their private ambulance company can't provide the people, what are we gonna do? So that question is around everywhere. You are not unique. You're not unique.
So, as I went through the report, as you talk about the good, the better, the best, you know, you talk about ideally, you know, if Piece's 6-station model can come to fruition, you know, I guess I'm, you know, going back to what we've been through, we were 1 station. I'm not familiar with all the terms, but let's call it automatic aid, stuff like that. You know, when typically when we would put out a call for help, it was Harlem, Roscoe, or Rockton. So, you know, so then we are now, what I would say, 3 stations. Not exactly, but is this kind of the layman's terms of how you break it down? Whereas, you know, if we can do what the Lloyd's trying to do, it would be 6 stations.
Yeah, and let me make sure I'm clear on this. So it'd be 6 stations for your response model, but that automatic aid still could be utilized for
Correct.
Brockton and Harlem Roscoe.
Correct.
So if it's on this side, you know, in the South Beloit area, that doesn't necessarily mean you're getting all of those stations from the north.
Correct.
You're getting the closest, being able to come in and fulfill that. But in either case, you're using those 6 stations as your normal response entity, but you can still use automatic aid. So again, it's all for one and one for all, trying to help each other out.
Anybody else? No, whatever, there's not a question and answer period.
I know.
Well, I don't have a question, I was just gonna say, if pensions are mobile, wouldn't have made more sense than to transfer the police department and keep the
No,
fire
you're out of
department?
order, you're out of order, don't do that.
I'm just,
This is our meeting, okay? Thank you.
Counselor, thank you.
It's a
Thank you.
public
Thank you for
meeting.
the opportunity. If y'all have any questions from either Chief K or myself, you know, we're available. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Appreciate the effort. Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,